conspiracy theory, and the paranormal meet. And now, we join the show already in progress with your hosts, Adam, Seraphiel, and Rob.
Here we are.
Yes, sir.
Another episode of Conspirinormal. And I did not think about it when I set things up this way, but we have another Bigfoot-themed show. Thus why on people that listen to the show on iTunes, when they find us, they can see our other alternate logo, which has a Bigfoot instead of a skull as our usual logo.
So we're on this kind of cryptid trip here for a little bit.
Yeah. So we have a guest on the show that reached out to us about coming on, and that's Mike Familant. And Mike,
how's it going, guys?
Good. Welcome to Conspirinormal, man.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So you run a Bigfoot hunting group, as I understand it, Sussex County Bigfoot. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's and no offense, but I do like to correct people when they say hunting. It's actually, I wouldn't consider it hunting at all, because we're not trying to capture or kill one of these things. We are just trying to investigate and find out what they really are. More of a research group. Yeah,
I like that, actually. That's a very good point. Hunting does have a kind of a negative connotation to it.
Yeah, we never bring guns out. Like, that's one of my big rules, is we don't carry weapons. Well, guns anyway.
Yeah. So how did you get into all this? Got involved in like the field of Bigfoot research?
Well, it's an interesting story. I was growing up, I was never outdoorsy. I like to play video games. Very inside person. And then I moved to Florida with my ex-fiance, and I worked at this beach resort. It was like the best job I've ever had. And I was watching this show, Finding Bigfoot, on TV. And I went online because I was quite bored, and I went on their website, and I saw that they had upcoming, an expedition in Florida, which is a public expedition that, you can pay a significant amount of money to go on, and you can go out with these Bigfoot researchers. So I was like, to my ex-fiance, I was like, hey, do you want to go on a vacation, go camping, get outside a little bit? And that was all good to go. So fast forward a little bit. Oh, the tickets were non-refundable. So fast forward a little bit, and my fiance is now my ex-fiance, and I had moved up to a different location in Florida, in Tampa. And the trip was coming up kind of quick, and I bought 2 tickets, and they're non-refundable. So I wasn't going to miss out on it. So I wanted to try to find somebody that would go with me. So I had a new job working on the ambulance for the city, and my partner is like the first time we worked together. I believe it's the first or second time. And I'm like, hey, not for nothing, but I bought these expensive tickets, and I need somebody to go with me up to North Florida to look for Bigfoot. And to my surprise, that can really make or break you in an organization, let me tell you. Like, if you ask the wrong person. But thankfully,
taking a risk.
Best friend now, Jimmy. Yeah. But my best friend Jimmy now, he's like, I've always wanted to do that. So instant, it worked out well. We went up to North Florida, and the expedition itself was interesting. We set up camp. There was like 60 people there, and we set up camp kind of away from everybody, because we didn't know how weird these people were going to be. And it turns out some of them were extremely interesting individuals. But so we set up camp away and had our own little kind of thing going on. We just hung out with ourselves. So the whole expedition goes by. It was a 3-night expedition. Nights 1 and nights 2 go by. We went to some really cool places, didn't have any activity whatsoever. We met some really great witnesses. For those people that are into the Bigfoot, the show Finding Bigfoot, we were at the Bridges property, and we were doing, all the investigations and stuff there and talking with them. So anyways, it was the last night, and nothing had happened. So me and my buddy, Jimmy, we were kind of had like a little campfire by ourselves. And we went up, we were watching a meteor shower. I'm really big into astronomy. In the city, you definitely can't see any stars or anything like that clear. So you could see, like, from where we were, you could see like the whole Milky Way. It was beautiful. And there was a meteor shower that night. So I'm like, last night, let's stay up a little bit. It was like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and we're just sitting there talking, and it was great. It was really just a special kind of position to be in. It's something that I've never done before, and it's just really cool. So, we're sitting there just talking and whatever, and then we hear a tree knock, which is, for those of you that aren't into Bigfooting, a tree knock is a possible way of communication between either another Bigfoot or another group of Bigfoots, or as a kind of like warning that we're in the area. And I will say, I'm not an expert in anything that I say on this podcast. I'd like to consider myself, a seasoned researcher. I think I've been out in the woods enough, and I know a lot of good techniques, and I've had some really good activity. But when it comes to Bigfoot itself, nobody is an expert. Nobody knows anything about these creatures other than what they've seen firsthand.
Sure.
So that's how I'm going to go about talking today, is because the things that I've seen, and that's why I believe what I believe.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So we heard this tree knock, and I didn't think much of it. I'm like, I paid a lot of money for this expedition, and I was thinking that since nothing happened, no Bigfoot activity, that some people were in the woods and they were doing tree knocks to, that's why people kept coming back on these things, and that's how they make money. Is, getting these people interested in, oh my God, did you hear that tree knock the next morning, and all that stuff. So I'm like, yeah, okay, that's cool. And then we heard another tree knock from like the complete opposite direction, and it was far away, but it was, very pronounced, very clear. And I was like, wow, these people are like, it was like 5 minutes apart. I'm like, wow, these people are pretty good. They'd really want, there to be some Bigfoot activity. And that's, I was like, wow, okay, cool. And then we were sitting maybe 20 minutes later, 15 or 20 minutes later, we were still sitting watching the meteor shower around this, campfire. And you heard come through the trees. I can't think the best way to describe it. It sounded like a baseball coming through the trees, and you hear it come through the canopy, and it landed. There was about a fist-sized rock that landed about 10 feet away from us. And I got scared. Now, this was my first time ever camping, so I was like, crap. I'm not okay with this. Something's throwing rocks at us. I'm like, these people really have, some big kahunas if they're, doing tree knocks and throwing rocks at us and landing them close. I was like, oh man, people are crazy.
You thought this was just a whole big setup.
Yeah, because I was like, nothing happened. I paid, a lot of money. I worked a lot of hours at the beach resort to take this trip. And so anyways, the rock lands, and I'm like, that's a little not cool. And you were sitting there, and I didn't think too much of it. But then another one, you hear the same exact thing that lands in almost the same spot come through the trees, about the same size, a little smaller. And I got scared because, keep in mind, this was my first time camping ever. I've never been ever in the woods really before this. So here I am in a spot that I don't know, pitch black. And there's rocks coming through the trees. And finally I was like, oh, well, maybe this isn't a person. Maybe it actually is Bigfoot. So my buddy Jimmy, he was like, well, if you want to sleep in the car And before you could even get that sentence completed, I had all of my contents from my tent, and I was running to the vehicle, and I was just going to sleep in there because I was like, that's good. This is not for me. I tried it. Good try. Didn't work. But then he talked some sense in me. He was like, Mike, this is why we're out here. This is something that Bigfoots are reported to do. Why don't we just enjoy it and see if we can, this could be legit. And I was like, okay, whatever. So over the course of the next, 20 minutes, I think there were a total of 5 or 6 rocks, this size or a little bit smaller, that landed anywhere from 5 to 15 feet away from us. And I still have those rocks. I actually collected them. They're still in my little Bigfoot display. So that was cool. And then my buddy's like, after the last one, the final one that got thrown, my buddy's like, I think I'm going to throw a rock back at it. And I'm like, I don't know if that's a good idea. Like, we're talking either it's a Bigfoot and you're going to piss a Bigfoot off, or it's a person and you might hit a person. Like where this is a lose situation. And so he picks up one of these rocks that were thrown. He does it anyway. He picks up one of these rocks and throws it back in the direction that they were coming from. All these rocks came from the same direction. So we threw the rock back, and at that, it was like 5 seconds later when I knew it wasn't a person, and I knew it was, I wasn't going to say I knew it was a Bigfoot. I knew it was something else, because I'd say maybe like a basketball or a large softball size rock came and landed like 5 feet from us. And you could hear that one go through the trees, obviously.
Really? That big, huh?
Yeah. So,
because I always envision when this happens, like small rocks are being thrown.
Yeah, no, these guys had some weight behind them. That large rock, that last one was, I mean, I could pick it up, but the weight behind it, I couldn't throw it more than 5 feet if I tried to throw it. That's, and I'm not a scrawny guy. That's just how heavy it was. So, the next morning we tell these people what happened. They're like, oh yeah, we heard the tree knocks, and then we explained the rock throws and stuff. And we did some like very rough estimates about like where these rocks were coming from and how far. And the way the terrain was, the position that we were located, the rocks, the closest it could have, the object throwing the rocks could have been, just because of the trajectory coming down through the trees and the topography and the landscape of where we were, was like minimum, I'd say 100, 125 yards away. So, then you start thinking, what can throw rocks that far? I mean, no, I can't. And with accuracy too, they all landed 5 to 15 feet from us. So it's I know I can't throw a rock. I can't throw a baseball that far, let alone, and I have a good arm, let alone a rock. And with that precision, you're talking like crazy. So unless Nolan Ryan was out in the woods somewhere, I don't think that was within human range. So that got me really thinking. Went home and I started really thinking, what could have thrown those rocks? And like, there's got to be something out there that's explainable that that's doing this. And then I started reading reports and sightings and witnesses. I got involved with the BFRO. I started speaking to witnesses, and it turned from like a passion into an addiction, and I've been going ever since. It's so awesome. But anyways, that's how I got into Bigfooting.
Yeah, so that's a question that I actually really wanted to ask you, as someone that does this on a fairly regular basis. This seems to be, and we actually in our last episode we talked to somebody that also goes out and kind of does this as well. But this seems to be like a new kind of almost I don't know, for lack of a better term, outdoor sport now, is this kind of looking for Bigfoot. You describe it as like kind of like you get a rush from it and like an excitement. I mean, is that something that's kind of all across the board for a lot of you guys that go out there and do this?
Well, you have you have three types of people that go out and look for Bigfoot, and you have the serious researchers, which I'd like to classify myself as one of them, that are really going out looking for patterns, and patterns lead to finding evidence, and finding evidence leads to proving the existence that these creatures exist. Then you have the kind of amateur, let's go out every once in a while with a couple friends and do a couple howls in the woods type of thing, and nothing like serious. They don't bring cameras and stuff like that, and then you have like the people that do hoaxes, which is a whole nother thing. It's interesting. That's an interesting way you said it. It's like a new outdoor sport. I think it's become extremely popular because of especially within the last couple of years, because of the television series that have been out about it, and just the fact that there's more people that are coming forward because it's so widely known on TV and socially. There's more people coming out to express their encounters that maybe have not wanted to in the past, but now that they see some people are actually into it, then I've gotten a lot of people messaging me and calling me saying, I never told anybody this, but this is what happened. And I think that's really cool. Yeah, you're getting a lot of that.
And the Bigfoot stuff right now is extremely huge. I mean, it's big. And forgive me for this because I don't really know. I mean, is that show Finding Bigfoot, is it even still on the air? Are they
No, they,
that's what I thought. Yeah.
They did they throw on some repeats every once in a while. I can't knock the show because that's what got me into Bigfooting. But everybody has, I guess, their different way of doing things. But just going back for a second, though, I think it's interesting because as you mentioned the Bigfoot community and the people that go out, like, it's interesting because there's different views on like what a Bigfoot is and how one would go about best researching a Bigfoot. And you have somebody that's not into it looking in, and it's unfortunate because, like I said, nobody's an expert. Nobody knows what this is, but you have somebody looking in from it and kind of diving into the information and researching different things. And you see there's people that believe that it's one thing and other people that feel it's something else. And then people look at these evidence that is supposedly a Bigfoot and they're like, holy crap, this is, a picture with 37 circles on it. Like, what? I don't know what that, and it's unfortunate because it's unfortunate because there's no, that kind of brings out the I don't know how you would say it. I don't want to use the word crazy, but I guess I will. The different aspect of it. There's no set thing of how to go out and research. Like if you were going out to research, endangered species, you would know how to do it. With Bigfooting, there's so many different theories. You can't even, that's why people, I don't think, really take this stuff seriously, is because there's so many theories about what a Bigfoot is. Yeah. And that's a shame because, I think it's an actual physical thing, like an animal or a person or a mix. And, I think they live here and they roam the woods, they eat animals and they leave footprints. I think it's a real thing, but there's other people that, have a different theory on it, which is cool. I don't knock anybody's theories.
So you don't buy the whole supernatural Bigfoot aspect? I'll be honest, that's where I lean. is that
okay? No, and that's cool. We can have a good discussion about that. So you're saying supernatural? Do you mean, like, describe what that means to you?
Well, I mean something that is not. I think something that is more of a discarnate kind of entity than something that is a real physical flesh and blood creature.
Just non-material.
Yeah,
and more of a haunting.
But when I say that, immediately what comes to mind is that the fact that there can be physical aspects of the phenomenon. For instance, with the whole stone throwing phenomenon and all this stuff that happens as you described, it seems to me that when these kind of things happen in poltergeist cases as well. It's just that when they're in a house, it's a poltergeist. When it's in the wilderness or the forest or whatever, it's a Bigfoot. So there's almost like there's some overlap. There's a lot to this. There's a few of our shows that you could go back and listen to where we've talked about this, but there seems to be some overlap with Bigfoot and some other aspects of the supernatural.
Okay, I can almost get on board with that, and I'd like to say anybody that has an opinion on this is, I respect that. I respect everybody's opinion, and that's just the fact that they have an opinion. There's people that have no idea and don't know, what they believe, and I think that, you really look into it and research and really, if you feel that a Bigfoot, because of what you've found out or know or whatever, if you believe that they're supernatural or if they're connected to aliens or UFOs or what have you, go with that route and stick to it, because like I said, nobody knows, nobody is an expert on these things. It could be anything. And I respect that train of thought. I really do. Me though, and
well, go ahead with your thought. Well, I'm open to the physical. I'm open to the flesh and blood creature. I think when you look at the Pacific Northwest and the vastness of the area out there, it's very possible. I mean, because Bigfoot to me is something that is much more likely than, say, like the Loch Ness Monster, where people say, "Oh, it's a lost dinosaur." There's not many 2 millions of years between us and something like Bigfoot. Like, Bigfoot is plausible. I mean, it's a mammal, it's a primate. It's possibility that it may even be some other kind of hominid species. I'm willing to go there, especially, like I said, with the Pacific Northwest and that whole area, that something like that could exist, and that possibility that they could even bury their dead, and that may be why you don't see the skeletons. And then, just as others have pointed out, I mean, you don't really see a lot of skeletons in the wild. So like I said, I'm willing to do that. And the Patterson Gimlin film is very compelling to me. I can buy that. I don't think that's a person in a suit. That's been people trying to say that that's a person in a suit. I mean, that's been debunked so many times. It's not even funny. But as you move further east in the United States, the stories get weirder and weirder, like the Stan Gordon stuff from Pennsylvania, and it became like this association with UFOs and that he talks about, and just other. I mean, I don't. If you've ever read Jerome Clark's book on like physical phenomenon unexplained, that's a very good book to read, because he talks about how essentially the description that he gives in that is like in the western part, buy the idea of a physical creature that lives, breathes, poops, everything that it does. But as you move further east, the way he describes it, you go into the goblin universe. And it's just the stories that are told about Bigfoot can be extremely strange, especially in the eastern part of the United States. So I think we could be dealing, and I'm definitely open to this, I think we could be dealing with both.
That's interesting. I've never really given it any thought. The further you move east, the kind of more out there the stories are. I'm not going to debate anybody's theory, because that's not my place to do it. If anything, I'm going to support your theory as long as you show evidence of it. As long as you show some reason why you believe that. But what I can do is just support my theory and why I believe the way I do is it's simply, I said before, you find patterns. Once you find patterns, then you find evidence. And once you find evidence, then there's that jump to, exploring what this thing actually is. And the patterns and the evidence that I have found, among others, with Dr. Meldrum and the foot structures and certain things like that, there is a very common thing that every Bigfoot has, or most every Bigfoot would have, is like a mid-tarsal break and 5 splayed toes and a tightrope walk pattern. That's common throughout the United States and other places, Canada, yes, wherever. The other thing is you look at more so patterns. Like I'm in New Jersey, so I'm pretty far east over there. But I did a lot of research, and I with the help of one of the professors, I forget his name, that I listened to speak a long time ago. Bigfoot in New Jersey have a pattern. I can predict using the time of year and what year it is, where a Bigfoot's going to be in the state of New Jersey. And that's because during the certain season and the certain year, every third year, sightings increase by 70%. So that would lead me to believe that it's an actual physical thing. And, I would, because of that information that I've researched and found out, it would lead me to believe that they're a nomadic species. So I took all of the sightings in New Jersey and color-coded the sightings with what season and year. And you can really look, and it's amazing that every third year, the Bigfoot sightings in a certain part of the state will increase by 70%. You follow that around, and you can actually see the Bigfoot migrating counterclockwise, or I say migrating, their nomadic activities go counterclockwise throughout the state, and they're in the same spot every third year. So
that is interesting.
I mean, just that fact right there would lead me to believe that it's more of a actual creature, more of a nomadic type thing. And I say nomadic because you put kind of another layer on top of the sightings and everything like that. Plants rejuvenate. When you strip an adult plant down to nothing, it rejuvenates in 3 years. So that would lead me to believe that the Bigfoot are going to be where the freshest, newest fruit is, and stuff that they eat. So it's really, I mean, there's a lot of actual research behind, why I believe what I believe. I will say I did have a connection. We went Bigfooting in North Jersey here. We were filming for the show, and it's actually on the episode. But I saw, I can't describe it other than an unidentified flying object. I have no idea what it was. Crazy. It wasn't, I'm not going to go into what it wasn't, but it was something that I couldn't describe. And then, later that night, maybe 45 minutes later or so, we had one of the best howls that we've ever recorded. So that, there's a stretch there too. I don't know if it's a coincidence. Yeah. I don't know if I was going crazy. I don't know. That's the thing. Nobody knows.
This is something again and again that you see in some of these cases where people will be pursuing one phenomenon and they'll have an experience in another phenomenon, such as what you just described, where you're out there looking for Bigfoot and all of a sudden you see some kind of flying, or some kind of, well, I'll say UFO. I won't say flying saucer, but because we don't know what that is either. But and then you hear that yelp coming from the woods. And so it's interesting that you say that, because I've heard that on more than one occasion. But in support of what you're saying, as far as like the nomadic stuff, I've definitely thought about that, because I mean that in a way makes sense because of just how much we as humans are really trespassing on and disturbing and destroying the habitats of just known animals, and how those animals pretty much have had to just, go on the road, so to speak, be nomads. I mean, you look at like the mountain lions are showing up in places where they're not supposed to be.
Absolutely.
So there's definitely this, I can definitely see that. And it would make sense too, if we're dealing with something that is close to us on the human family tree or on the primatological family tree. If we're dealing with that, then it would tend to reason, our early ancestors were all hunter-gatherers. They were nomads, essentially, for thousands and thousands of years. I mean, we would be dealing with that. It's possible we would be dealing with that, with these creatures.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and that, like I said, that's the way I lean towards. And, there's other factors why I think that way, but again, nobody knows. I would be floored if somebody were to come out and, have some actual evidence that a Bigfoot can be interdimensional. That would be insane. That would be I can't even imagine what scientists and biologists, what that would do to the whole, everything. Do I tend to think that? No, I don't. I mean, maybe because I've never experienced it. Maybe maybe I'll go out next week and I'll see something that, oh crap, that changes my whole perspective on a Bigfoot. That could definitely happen. Hasn't happened yet though.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'm definitely interested in it being some kind of physical creature. I mean, I think that we talked about this kind of on the last show. If it does turn out to be, some kind of physical creature, and it turns out to be some kind of human relative, I think that would be extremely interesting.
That would be one of the biggest scientific discoveries in the past century. Easy.
Here's something related to that, kind of, piggybacking off of what Adam was saying. We've been talking about Bigfoot for the last 3 episodes. Do you think there's any kind of concerted, organized effort to suppress information about Bigfoot by the authorities?
See that's something I won't get into. I've been asked that a lot, and I have my personal opinion on it. However, I don't think that would benefit the community by saying or agreeing or disagreeing with these conspiracy theories. I think that's something that, again, everybody can have their opinion on, but in the effort of Bigfoot research, I don't think that plays a important role in anything that I do anyway. I'm trying to find evidence about these Bigfoot.
You'd rather just stick to the facts and stick to the research instead of trying to speculate on something like that.
For me, it really, it doesn't matter if the government is trying to cover up or try to hide a Bigfoot or whatever it may be. That doesn't affect my research at all. I do it because I like doing it. It's like camping on steroids, and
yeah.
I like that. I like being in the woods, and I love nature. I love seeing stuff I wouldn't see sitting on the couch. So that's why I do it. I don't if the government is doing something whatever kind of skeevy with the Bigfoot, whatever, that's fine. I just like it for the experience.
Gotcha.
Well, let's talk about this. Let's talk about your web series about the In Search of Big Red Eye. What inspired you to do this series on YouTube?
Well, it's my show is called In the Shadow of Big Red Eye, and basically what we were doing is I was going on a lot of expeditions with myself and some friends and stuff, and we brought equipment. We had night vision cameras and stuff, and of course, as I researched more and more into this possibility of a Bigfoot and talk to witnesses more and whatever, I would very much watch every possible show that I could find about Bigfoot. And, I'll use Finding Bigfoot for an example. it's kind of like a perfect example. I'd like to preface this by saying, like, everybody in that show, Matt, Bobo, Cliff, Renee, they are all super serious, awesome people that are really, really into Bigfooting. They know what's up. They are the real deal when it comes to investigations and expeditions and stuff. They know what's up. Unfortunately, kind of like a double-edged sword, because the show is what got me into it, but the show also it kind of portrays Bigfooting in a different way than what it actually is. Though, for example, the thing that gets me the most about it is they will have they say they picked up some audio of a Bigfoot call or what have you, and you're listening to it and they play music over the audio. And to me, that's like, okay, TV shows are made to make money and they're made to have viewers. I get that. It's a business. Totally, I'm totally understanding of that. So what I did was I got tired of seeing, like, these people, like, the show portrays that they go out in the woods and they do Bigfoot calls constantly. And then they always get something. They always get, hear something or find something. And then the drama of, like, oh, what could it be? Whatever. And that's not what Bigfooting is. It's Bigfooting is about, and kind of like I touched on before, is about going out into the woods and exploring nature, exploring something you wouldn't see sitting on your couch. So I wanted to make, I do have a background in video editing. So I decided, I'm going to make this show about what Bigfooting truly is. And you will see, like, if anybody that watches my show, it's very, it's filmed in an amateur kind of style. And I've gotten some flack for that. Some people say it's not professional, whatever. But I did that on purpose because I want people to be able to kind of relate to going out and being able to do it themselves. We will show setting up camp. We'll show campfire chat and the funny stuff that happens at camp. We'll show fishing. I like to go fishing. So you know what? I'm going to put it in the show. Maybe someone can relate to that. We also go to, like, local attractions and stuff. So if anybody is in that area, they can check out the local attractions. I mean, that not only, is a cool thing to do, but it boosts the local economy, and they don't show that on TV. And what's cool about my show is I edit everything. So, I produce the show, I film the show. I can put whatever I want in there. And I don't mean evidence-wise, but I mean, I can make it the way I want to make it. If we went, say, to this local hot dog shop that everybody knows about in town, and we had a really good experience there, well, they got free advertising because I'm going to show it on there,
Yeah,
and hopefully people will go there and
why not
experience the same thing.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about the people. I wouldn't worry about the people giving you flack about, the professionalism. And it's just like they want everything to look like it does on TV. And it's just, it's not when you're doing it. But you see, it's the DIY aspect of it. It's the same thing that we're doing here as podcasters. You're doing something more difficult than we're doing.
I've gotten a lot of, negative comments on YouTube and hate messages. They found my phone. Some people found my phone number somehow and they'll text me, which is really awkward and creepy to an extent.
A little bit, yeah.
And they'll message our Facebook page and stuff. And they say all these, things like, oh, that was a waste of my time and stuff, and all this stuff. They'll pick apart anything. And you know what? I'm okay with that because, that just, for me anyway, the way I look at it is that, it's sad that person, whoever is spewing these negative things, it's sad that person actually has to type that out and take the time to say something negative about something I've worked so hard on. And I would just hope that person, can find, like, some kind of happiness that they could just not have to be so negative all the time about. But
or better
it
things
is
to
what it
do with
is.
their lives.
Well, I get it. Some people are, armchair warriors, especially in the bigfooting field. Everybody has something to say about everything. But that doesn't stop me. If anything, that kind of gets me going. That gets me amped up a little bit and be like, you know what? You're probably jealous that you didn't think of this, or you didn't, connect these two things, or you're not able to produce a show like mine because maybe you like it and you just want to be like, oh, you took I don't know. But, I don't let any negative comments get to. I like the constructive criticism, to be honest. I think that's my show is made for the fans. It's made for the viewers. Without the viewers, I wouldn't have a show. So,
right, exactly.
Anybody that, sends me information or like, hey, you got this wrong, or, oh, that's a good connection you made. Like, that's what it's all about. I had the best thing I've gotten from this show is there was a gentleman that had messaged me privately, and he said, to make a long story short, I talked to this gentleman for a while. I still talk to him every once in a while, but he is used to be very big outdoors, hunter, everything outside, and he had recently had like an acute issue which left him disabled and unable to do the things that he used to like to do. So he found my show, and he says, he wanted to thank me for being able to live his old life through my show. And to me, that is the biggest compliment that, to me, making this whole, the thousands of hours I put into this show, that one guy got that out of it, I'm happy. It just made, it's so special to me to be able to have that help somebody who might not be able to go outside themselves. It's incredible. It's an incredible feeling.
Yeah, we can totally relate to that. We really do it for the listeners.
Mm-hmm. It depends with the people that you never know who you're going to reach. You never know who you're going to touch out there. That's kind of the reward that we get out of doing this. So
it's fun. I said the hours that I put into the show, and it's a lot. I mean,
oh, I'm sure.
We go on a normal expedition. We're out there 3 nights. We come home with close to 500 gigabytes of film and audio. I'd say about close to 40 hours or so of actual film. And we have to, combine that down into 1 hour. So that takes a lot of time from start to finish. From the expedition end date to the finished product of the show takes about a month. And we pump out about 10 episodes a season. So if you do the math, we only film, we just started filming this season, and the first episode comes out the end of October. So if you do the math, it's going to be a busy couple months for me, but I don't mind it because, like I said, if it helps somebody or it gets somebody into going outside instead of sitting on the couch, and hell, yeah, I did it. That's all that matters to me.
Well, let's talk about some of the content, some of the places that you've gone. I mean, let's start off with Big Red Eye himself. Now, this is one that I've never heard of, and I was also surprised at just how I know about the Pine Barrens, but I was really surprised of how rural this area is that you're in New Jersey.
Yeah, people think of New Jersey and they think of, cities and airports and pollution, and granted, that's a lot of it.
I think of The Sopranos. That's what I think of.
And that's but what's really interesting is New Jersey is the highest densely populated state. It's very packed, but it's packed near the urban centers. If you go out to the Pine Barrens per se, you go to Wharton State Forest, the average density population in New Jersey, I think, is 1,200 people per square mile, I think, or something like that. And if you go down in the Pine Barrens, it's 1 person per square mile.
Yeah, Pine Barrens is very desolate, very remote.
People don't realize that. And like up here in North Jersey where I am, I think there's I want to say 56% of Sussex County is forest lands, like protected lands or wildlife management areas or something like that, where nobody lives. It's you look at a map and it's really, we have a mix of everything. We have cities, we have not cities, but we have, pretty urban towns. And then you go out up into Pennsylvania, New York areas, and it's mountains, it's state parks and national parks. And it's amazing, really. There's a lot of places people don't realize that.
So big red eyes.
Yeah, big red eye. That was back in the 70s. I believe it was 1972. There was a state park ranger that was patrolling High Point State Park, which is the northernmost section of New Jersey. It's the armpit between Pennsylvania and New York. And it's the highest point, obviously, thus the name. But a state park ranger was patrolling kind of down some of these areas. I don't know if he was walking or driving. I think he got out of his car for some reason, and he was kind of looking around. I guess he might have saw something, so he got out of his vehicle, looking around with a flashlight or whatever, and he saw two reflecting red eyes looking right back at him. And New Jersey has had a history of sightings, but that was the first really public one that got a lot of attention, and all the newspapers covered it, and it was kind of like, Northwest Jersey's Bigfoot, and they named it Big Red Eye because that's literally what it was, a big thing with red eyes. So that's the history of the name, Big Red Eye.
And so the thought of this is some kind of Bigfoot-like creature.
Yeah, I can't say all of them, but a large majority of the sightings in Sussex County, since I lived there, I have done a lot of research. I mean, I've done a lot in New Jersey, but I've made, I have a map of every sighting in Sussex County, and it's, I have a list of personal interviews that I've talked to almost all of these people about. Ones that aren't published have been forgot about. I've been able to find and talk to people, mostly through word of mouth, which is great. But everybody describes seeing the same kind of creature, 7 to 8 foot tall, kind of upright bear-like creature with shoulders, no tail. Very human-like face, usually black hair. There are some reports of like a maroon color up this way, and some reports of a gray Bigfoot also. And they are all universally the same, which is lines with the Bigfoot of, say, Northern California and Washington State and that area. Okay. All very, very similar characteristics.
And you're seeing the phenomenon where we were talking about how where they're moving in and out of the area. Have you seen that in that area that you have been, the Sussex County area?
Yeah, absolutely. What's super interesting is there's I'm not going to name the road, but there's a road in Sussex County that I'm sure the people that live in this area are going to know it, but Sussex County has a decent amount of Bigfoot sightings. It's the highest in the state. And there, especially with the research that I've done, there's this one road, I think it's 1.2 miles long or something like that. And it's in a farm. It's surrounded by farms. It goes through literally just farm fields and cows and pastures. And there's nothing else on this road for the whole length of it. And that road itself has had 8 sightings, which is extremely crazy, considering, the amount of sightings all over Sussex County. That is like, if you were to put a scatter plot, of Sussex County, that would be bright red, which is super interesting because it's not in the woods. It's not in a state park. It's literally farms. And, I don't know, that just, they're all different, different years, and it's interesting. But yeah, I've also seen the nomadic I could draw you a map of where a Bigfoot's going to be, where they're going to and where they came from in Sussex County. Absolutely.
And do these migratory patterns, do they revolve around, I guess, food? I mean, that's what they would traditionally revolve around, right?
Yeah, I believe it's food. I believe the Bigfoot have the same or a very similar diet to a black bear. So that would make sense that a Bigfoot would eat, mostly grasses and plants and stuff like that, and then the occasional deer or roadkill or whatever it may be.
Yeah, you'd have to have, for a creature that large, you'd have to have a good supply of protein. You'd have to have a good supply of meat. And there's a lot of deer.
Yeah, Sussex County does have a lot of deer. We also have the highest density population of black bear in the Northeast. So there's definitely enough food here to sustain a very high population of black bear. Therefore, I believe it would sustain a Bigfoot. If you take the United States and you overlay a bear population map over a Bigfoot sighting map, they're almost exactly the same. If you want to go to a real extreme example, you take the state of Florida. In Florida, they have 4 different populations of black bear. They're only in certain areas of the state. And you overlay a Bigfoot sightings, it's exactly the same. There's 4 different areas of Bigfoot sightings, and they are exactly the same as bear sightings. Really interesting.
That is interesting. I mean, it kind of makes sense because that's in the natural world. I mean, you got different predators competing for the same niche, the same space. I wanted to ask you about seeing this eye shine or seeing these lights. Did you at some point? I watched a presentation that you did today where you talked about seeing like a red light and a blue and like some blue lights as well out there in the woods.
Yeah, that was in the Green Swamp in Florida, and Green Swamp is a huge area of nothing. There's just swamp, and it's a big hunting area, but there's literally, if you look at a map of Florida, it's just south of Ocala. There's nothing there. It's really cool. One road runs through it. It's really neat. But anyways, we were out there doing an overnight. I think it was one or two overnights, and my buddy Jimmy, who was with me on my initial expedition, we were out, and it was our last night, and we were just going at it. I mean, this was like he describes it as like a no holds barred kind of night. We were doing howls, tree knocks, whoops. I mean, everything you can imagine to try to stir up some activity, because we had none prior to that. And we were going at it every, 10 feet, we would do a tree knock. Not something that I normally do, but in that situation, because we didn't have any activity, I figured, what's it going to do? Might as well pull out all the stops and see if something happens. And it did. It was cool. So we were walking this trail in the middle of nowhere, and we turned this corner. Jimmy had this big spotlight thing. And we were just kind of shining it around every once in a while, and all of a sudden he shines it, and he sees like these kind of like, I wouldn't call them glowing, but reflecting kind of things. It looked like almost like a signpost, like a reflective red and white thing or whatever. It got that, and that caught our attention, and he shined the light back at it, and there were 2 sets of eyes. There was a set that was red, kind of red orange, kind of oranger in the middle, and there was a set of blue eyes, which were like aqua light blue, almost whitish, but they had definitely a blue tint to them, and that caught us off guard because we weren't thinking we were going to see anything. And anyway, long story short, we were watching them for quite some time. This was before I started filming the show, so I didn't have a camera with me. But I was watching them we were both watching them and saw them. And the set of red eyes, I believe that the set of red eye, that turned towards the blue eye, and you could see it in the light because one eye kind of disappeared and it moved a little. The one that you could see moved a little bit, and then it blinked and then turned back at us, and then we were gone. That was icing on the cake. That was, we thought it was people because we didn't realize that people don't have eye shine at that point. We were thinking about, they were hunters at night, illegal hunters. We were thinking, anything. And then that happened. We were out of there. My buddy Jimmy marked the spot. He was smart. Before he started running, he kicked a rock in the middle of the trail we were on, and we, hauled butt back to camp. And next day we went out there to do some measurements and see. My initial thought was that it was an owl, like two owls sitting on a branch, and that's what we were seeing, because there are a lot of owls in Florida. So we went out to the spot, and we saw exactly where we were standing, and we did one of those recreations where I walked out to where it was, and it was perfect. I held up two little red lights, and he was able to space them apart. They were about, I'd say 10 inches apart from each other, both sets of eyes. And we were able to see exactly where it was standing, or they were standing. And there was no trees, no branches, anything like that. Besides like a palmetto bush, which I don't know if anybody's familiar with palmetto bushes, but they can't hold a mouse type of thing. Like there's no way an owl's gonna be able to sit on them.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
That was it. That was, it was, there was an indentation in the ground that, the eyes were, when we saw them, we did a measurement, the eyes were like 5 feet in the air, which definitely doesn't put it out of human possibility. But then at the same area that we saw the eyes, there's a foot indentation in the ground that you could see that they were standing or kneeling in. And, to this day, I can't explain what that was. I'm not saying it was a Bigfoot, because I don't know. I didn't see it myself. I couldn't see clear even with the light. We couldn't see anything, but it was just too far away with the light. But we did see the eyes, and I did a lot of research on eye shine after that, and nothing. There's nothing that shines blue eye shine in the woods.
Right.
Red, yes. There's a lot of stuff that's red, nothing blue. So I don't know. I don't know. I would, if it was just me, I'd say like, maybe I was seeing something. Maybe my eyes were playing tricks on me. But both of us saw it at the exact same time. I have all the audio of it because we did have a voice recorder going, and we saw it at the exact same time. It was there, something there. And I just don't, we both to this day have no idea what it was.
Well, that's something that's come up again and again too, where people have seen these lights or the eye shine. I mean, I think it's all just based on interpretation, but you think definitely that at least the red was eye shine, and the blue. Well, I think the blue you can't explain.
I think the blue was too, which if it was, that means I can't explain it.
Yeah.
Just because you have two things standing right next to each other that have eyes that are 10 inches apart, as per the recreation. I don't know, they were obviously similar. They knew each other was there if they were two biological things standing next to each other. I don't know. I've heard reports. Actually, it's not uncommon to see glowing blue eyes. I've spoke to a couple different witnesses that have reported that, and they say that they're crazy because it's something blue in the woods. I'm like, yeah,
mm-hmm.
that's not unheard of. That opens up a whole different door to. Okay, so if they have different color eyes, what does that mean for like a species? If they are, the same species or different species, because normally, one species has the same color eyes. So, that opens questions up. And then, there's a big debate I've come across that do Bigfoot's eyes glow? Glow from inside, like from their body, or do they reflect? And I think they reflect. And people say, well, I've seen eye glow where, nobody's shining a light at it. I say, okay, that's fine. There's no primates that can do that. There's no mammals that can produce their own light. The only things that can are deep in the ocean or fireflies.
Yeah.
So there's no known animal that can do that. And on top of that, I think that the shine, I'm going to say shine because it shines back, is the result from, I think they have very good night vision, which means that their eyes reflect extremely well. And I think that's they take the ambient light from the sky, and that's how it comes across as eye glow. But I think it's just the ambient light from the sky or wherever it may be, the cloud cover and whatever, that they are able to absorb any ambient light and reflect that to make them, ultimate night vision.
Well,
that's my
would it be safe to say the possibility that Bigfoot could be a nocturnal animal?
Oh, absolutely.
It would make sense.
I think they're both.
Yeah.
I think they're both. I think 66% of sightings of a Bigfoot happen during the day, and that's actual visual sightings. They happen during the day. So that means a majority of the sightings would be during the day. However, I think that number is very skewed because there aren't a lot of people in the woods at night. You need two things to have a Bigfoot sighting. You need a Bigfoot and a person. And, if you don't have people in the woods, they're not going to see a Bigfoot. So I think, they are out during the day, but I think at night is when you're going to see, you have the ability to capture evidence of them the best. No, I can't say that. During the day would be evidence, but at night would be when I believe they're the most active.
I could see that. Let me ask you this too. This is something that has come up a few times, of the idea that these creatures could use some kind of infrasound because you will see what people will talk about, how they'll be out in the woods and they'll experience being very uncomfortable or feel like something is watching them. I've heard this again and again. Have you ever experienced anything like that?
Yeah, it's funny that you bring that up. We're actually going to be releasing a video in the next, week or so, of me experiencing the exact thing that you're talking about. I was filming a solo hike, and I was going to make it into like a Squatchables, which is another sub-series of In the Shadow of Big Red Eye. But I was filming for that, and it was just me, and I was just talking and filming. I don't know. And then I get to this one point of this trail that I've been on, hundreds of times. Not hundreds, but I've been on it a lot. I can do the trail in the dark. I know exactly where everything is. And I do it solo a lot because it's very close by my residence. And, one thing just to say, I am okay being in the woods by myself. I do solo camping, solo hiking. I actually enjoy that a lot. So being in the woods at night doesn't give me the heebie-jeebies at all. Used to, but it doesn't anymore. Yeah,
for a guy that wasn't very experienced with it a few years ago, you've come a long way with it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's cool. Just on a side note too, is like, if people don't want to get into Bigfooting, and because of whatever reason, like you could totally like get into other stuff too. Like I got into survival stuff a lot. Like I can make a fire with stuff that's in my pockets right now, and like 2 sticks and stuff like that, and I could like filter water with nothing. It's that kind of aspect is cool to me. I may be on Naked Afraid. I have an application out, so I don't know. Anyways, but yeah,
we're rooting for you, man.
Well, yeah, that's gonna be interesting if I get on that. People are going to see a side of me that they sure as hell don't want to see.
It'll be pixelated. Don't worry about it.
It'll be like on Cops.
I have a joke that I have a joke that I would add in right now, but I don't think it's quite appropriate. So I'm going to leave that one out.
This is an adult show. I mean,
maybe you'll have some assistance from Bigfoot.
I don't think I'm going to get on Naked and Afraid because they're going to have to Google
you.
No, the guy that does the pixelation, the blur guy, he's going to be getting too much overtime. I don't think that's, I don't.
Oh, yeah.
Cut that out.
No, you got to leave that in. Sorry.
Hey, yeah, they might be afraid Bigfoot might help you out too much too. They just leave little scraps of meat and berries for you. You know, he'll do all the work.
Got Bigfoot on your side. But we were talking about infrasound there.
Yeah. So I was filming, and I got to this point in the woods about a mile down the trail, and this was going to be, I was going to do a loop hike at about 7 miles. So I was relatively just getting into it, and I had some things I wanted to say, so I was filming before I forgot about them. And you could see it on the video, and something happens to me, and I didn't get any physical feelings. It was it was like I passed through a door that everything changed. I was so comfortable walking out there and everything was cool. And then boom, something happened, and I got like the hair stood up on the back of my neck. I was like, oh, I just passed something, and something doesn't want me here. What's really interesting is you see on the video, and I noticed this while I was filming, and I actually show it, right at the point that I get that feeling, I look around, and I have my light on because I'm scared, and I have my light on, I'm looking around, and there is definitely a tree break that is right next to me, next to the trail, that I know for a fact was not there the last time I was there, about week and a half, 2 weeks prior to that, probably a week and a half. So I don't know, now people do say they get zapped, if you will. I know I have a good friend who comes out with us all the time, Kevin. He has gotten zapped before. I've never gotten zapped, so I don't know what it is or how they do it. I will say, unlike the bioluminescence and the glowing eyes, I will say it is possible that Bigfoot have a certain, I wouldn't say power. I would say it's more of a frequency that we can't hear, that is designed to intimidate or stun prey, because that is known in the primate community. Primates do, have that ability. Same way with marine life has that ability, and I believe tigers do as well. So I wouldn't put that out of the realm of possibility. I've never experienced it, though.
Interesting. I wonder which ones do that, because I've not heard that. Is that in the great apes family, or is that more like monkeys that do that?
No, I believe it's the great apes. I'd have to don't quote me on it. I'd have to look it up, but I believe when I was looking up that, doing some research about it, there are examples of great apes having that ability.
Yeah, see that's a fascinating thing, and that's another thing that's in that kind of fine line between, are we dealing with something that's supernatural, or are we dealing with something that's physical? Because there is that explanation with the infrasound that could be what it is, and it gives you the feeling that you're dealing with something supernatural, but it actually isn't. It's just a special ability that these creatures have, or we could be dealing with something that is supernatural. I wanted to hit on this before we let you go, which is, I thought this was a funny one. When you went down to investigate the Ocala skunk ape, did you actually get to investigate this, or did you just get to run around?
We drove, in total, that trip, I think we drove 2,400 miles, and I don't even know how many hours. I think it was close to 30 hours. Probably 35 hours, I think it was, to go down there and to film this amazing episode in Ocala. I've been there before. It's a hot spot. I was seeing my old friends that live down in Florida, from when I lived down there, and it was going to be this trip that was going to be awesome, and it was not awesome. It was, I mean, I would do it again just because, I like road trips, but this thing, I like to have everything planned out ahead of time with these, with logistics and how these expeditions are going to work, especially with the show. If we have witnesses and we have to be somewhere at a certain time, this trip was just, issue after issue after issue. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the episode, go ahead and, take a look at it. It's in season 3, it's the Ocala episode. And, finally we were able to set up a spot, and we did research. We didn't go far. We researched right around camp. And, I think we did 2 hours because I was running on zero sleep for like 2 days at that point, and the Red Bull had finally wore off and I didn't have any more. And it was just my body just crashed after that. And what's really interesting about that, through all that, headache and everything that happened that trip, we ended up getting some really good evidence, not of a Bigfoot, but of another very endangered species that lives in Florida. And that just goes to show you, it doesn't matter how much time you put in the woods or how much, where you go to. You just got to be, it turns out, and I hate to say it, but to get good evidence, you got to be at the right place at the right time and have a whole lot of luck on your side. And we did that episode. It was really cool.
Yeah, I really like your emphasis on getting out and doing the work. It translates into other stuff that we're interested in, and I'm always talking about too, of just like getting outside and exploring the world, and things will come to you in the actual physical world in ways that they won't by just being an armchair researcher,
And not only that, it's great to see stuff and experience things. These state parks have some amazing areas in them.
Great. Mm-hmm.
But for me, also, it has a therapeutic effect on me because, I mentioned going solo, going hiking solo and camping solo. It really, there's a study out that shows if you spend time in nature, you're a happier person.
Yeah.
And I think the benefits of, one, being self-sufficient, and 2, overcoming your fear of whatever you may have of either spiders or the dark or whatever, exposing yourself to that and like I said, being self-sufficient, and it's just, there's no negative thing about it unless you get attacked by a bear or something. There's no negative thing of exploring nature. It's just remarkable. There's so much, and like I said before, just get into survivalists or fishing or trapping, hunting. There's so much stuff you can do outside. Go hula hooping. I don't know. Just do it outside. Get away from the computer and the TV for a little bit and breathe in some fresh air and just, enjoy. A lot of people don't do that anymore. A lot of people have lost touch with what true enjoyment really is.
Yeah, get their faces out of the phone and go to a place where you don't get a signal, so you don't have to use your phone anymore.
That is one of the things that when I look for a place to camp or for an expedition, I don't look for sightings, past sightings. I don't look for a history of sightings. I don't look for any of that. I look for no cell phone service, and I look for a good habitat of Bigfoot. I look for where there's going to be black bear. I look for where there's food, water, and shelter. But the big thing I look for is if there's cell phone service there, I don't want to be there. Not because of anything Bigfoot related, but when I'm in the woods, I don't want to be bothered by people. That's one of the main reasons why I go out in the woods, is to get away from people. Not obviously the people that I go with and stuff. That's a whole different story. But emails, and even with this show, we'll be filming the show, but I put a lot of there's a lot of time that goes into this show, and promotions. I'm not going to get into how much time, but there's a lot of I do stuff all the time. Even when I'm not working on the show, I'm working on the show type of thing. And, just to get away from that, even though we're filming it and doing everything for the show, not to have to worry about it for a while, that's what makes the trip for me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We need to come out there with you.
Yeah, we've never been on Yeah, we've never been on a Bigfoot expedition before. We're totally down.
Where are you guys located out of?
We're in Tennessee. We're in Nashville.
Oh, okay. We'll talk privately because we have an expedition coming up down that way.
Do you really? Okay. All right. I did want to add in that Ocala episode that at least you did get to go to south of the border.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's funny because I made a joke that did we go into Mexico? I was asleep in the back seat, and I really didn't know where we were. So when I got out of the car and I saw this stuff, like I knew I'd been to south of the border before, but I was like, how long was I asleep for? Like, did we make a wrong turn? Like, where are we?
I think Mexico's chupacabra territory, man. I don't think they can cross over.
I said, I'm like, I guess we're going to have to chuck the Bigfoot, and it'll be chupacabra, in the shadow of chupacabra. I'll do it.
Yeah, for anyone that doesn't know, and I've never been here, I've never been there, but apparently south of the border is this place that's on the border between North Carolina and South Carolina, and it's a Mexican-themed place, and like the mascot there is named Pedro. And apparently,
it's a horrible place. It's a terrible, terrible place. And
yes.
The only reason why I say that, the only reason why I say that is for people that have not driven that corridor of I-95. There are signs, billboards. They start at over 200 miles in each way from south of the border, and every mile there's a sign. And you really get hyped up about it because these signs are pretty funny. And then it's like, oh man, I got to stop there. And you stop there and it's like, wow, this place sucks.
Yeah, it's one of those places apparently that, as I've been told, and I've never been there, but apparently you have to pay to use the bathroom.
Oh, wow.
It is a place like that.
It's the ultimate toll.
I've not gone to the bathroom there, but, I will say,
pay a quarter.
I have had... I had the Mexican food from there just because, well, you kind of have to. They don't have anything else.
Yeah.
But paying for the bathroom is definitely that's a good business strategy after eating that food.
Oh shit.
And apparently there's a sign as you leave it from South Carolina. It's like something like, Pedro is sad that you're leaving, or Pedro is sad that you didn't stop at south of the border, and he's crying apparently. Our friend Heather would love this because she's a good friend of our show and a former coworker of mine, and she is the one that actually told me about this, so shout out to her. But yeah, we're looking at pictures of it right now.
Wow, that's great.
But Mike, if you could tell the audience where they can contact you, where they can see In the Shadow of Big Red Eye, and all that good stuff. Subscribe to your YouTube channel as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate the chance to do that. Our YouTube channel is the channel itself is called Sussex County Bigfoot. And please subscribe to that. I do want to make a point that I'm not trying to get famous doing this. Like it's not my goal to be a TV star or wherever the show brings. I'm not opposed to it, but I'm not. It's not why I made this show. But each subscription does help, and if you could share it and anybody that's into Bigfooting and funny stuff, that's what we do. And the reason behind getting the subscriptions is the simple fact that the more subscribers I get, the more money that I can start accumulating, through monetization, money from the show. And that goes to just, I'm just going to use that money to make a better show for you guys. Like I said, it's all about the fans. So please subscribe and share. And we do have an Instagram, Shadow of Red Eye. You can follow us on there. Our Facebook page is In the Shadow of Big Red Eye. You can like that and kind of see some like behind the scenes things that don't get posted to YouTube and our upcoming events and stuff like that. And finally, we do have some items, some merchandise that we have for sale. Again, I lose a lot of money doing this show, and I don't mind it because I love it, but I don't make any money ever. And what's cool about this is we do have T-shirts, hats, DVDs, and stuff for sale, and they're reasonably priced, but they are marked up a little bit. So I do make a little bit of money, but at the end of the year, the profits, a certain percentage of the profits that we sell, are donated to a local animal hospital and rescue, because that it's about giving back for me. It's not about making money. It's about helping others in need, and you can see that that's pretty evident through the show. And any purchase that you buy, it's not we don't take the profits at the end of the year, because there are none. We take from each sale, a percentage goes to this local animal shelter. So you're directly helping some of the animals up here in North Jersey, and you get a cool shirt or hat or DVD out of it too.
Well, excellent. It all goes to a good cause. Okay, so that was good. Mike, stay on the line for us. We're going to close this section out, and guys, we'll be back to close out the show with a few announcements on Conspirinormal. Well, I noticed that you've been listening to your ways to achieve success, and that you're starting your Fortune 500 company.
Yeah, I'm trying to hypnotize myself into success.
So we've got a sponsor called, you may have heard of it, called ZipRecruiter.
No, I've never heard
of it. And you can further hypnotize yourself into success. And if you want to help us and help the show and ZipRecruiter, on behalf of our partner, ZipRecruiter, here's why ZipRecruiter is the smartest way to hire. ZipRecruiter's powerful matching technology identifies people with the right skills, education, and experience, and actively invites them to apply to your job, so you get qualified candidates fast. It's no wonder that ZipRecruiter is rated #1 by employers in the U.S. Thus, rating comes from hiring sites on Trustpilot with over 1,000 reviews. And right now, if you go to ZipRecruiter.com/Conspirinormal, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/Conspirinormal, and keep listening to your self-help records.
Hey, that was pretty cool, man. I think...
Yeah, we could do that. Can you do some backmasking?
Yeah, of course.
All right, so ZipRecruiter.com/Conspirinormal, guys. Check it out.
And now, back to the show.
I'm conjuring Bigfoot right now. I'm gonna get him in here right at this point. So, interesting interview. Oh, yeah. Like I said, I did not purposefully set this up this way to where we had two Bigfoot shows, but I think it's interesting that they kind of matched each other.
Really cool. That was really cool. I think
he definitely
Bigfoot for a while.
Yeah, I think I'm done a little bit with it.
Cut it off there.
Yeah, I think I'm done just a little bit, but it's so popular right now.
Oh yeah, it's cracking.
And like I said, the reason I asked the question about whether finding Bigfoot was done or if it wasn't, then it's been done for a little while now, but it's like the Bigfoot stuff. Oh my God!
You think that was the catalyst for this new wave right now?
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, people are super into it, and it's almost like Bigfoot has become this totem now for people. That is like the spirit animal.
Yeah.
Of the United States.
Yeah.
Is Bigfoot.
Yeah. Yeah.
People believe in this creature. And I think that it manifests itself. And, and Mike brought some good points up as far as like there being a physical manifestation of Bigfoot. It's just like the other weird stuff that is associated with Bigfoot, there's just too much of it for me to say that it's not some kind of...
Well, I think with the more materialist...
spiritual thing.
Yeah, with the more materialist people, when they talk about the physical aspects, that doesn't. I mean, if it is some kind of paranormal phenomenon, then it will manifest physical things, just like a poltergeist, just like the alien phenomenon, just like whatever.
Right. We were talking about this whole concept of apports and the whole the implants.
Yeah.
For in the alien abduction phenomenon of that being some kind of apport, and you see that in the fairy lore as well.
Or these pieces of weird metal for the alien stuff, or objects. But in the Bigfoot case, things like footprints, things like the rocks being thrown or whatever. I mean, it's very similar.
And this whole idea of like where the footprints end, which you may see that come up in a future book at some point.
But
not that we're writing.
The physicality and materialism needs to be studied, because that helps the whole thing. But I just don't think that's where it ultimately ends.
Let's switch gears just a little bit. Let's talk about this Jeffrey Epstein thing real quick.
Uh-oh.
I think this is pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's going down.
Back when we were looking into the whole Pizzagate phenomenon and all this that was going on, and now you've got this whole QAnon thing that's happening. I mentioned Jeffrey Epstein as being a real case where children, in this case underage teenage girls, were being basically prostituted.
And that all came into big public attention with those two Vanity Fair articles in 2016.
Okay.
Because of his Trump connections.
Yeah. So now we've got an interesting phenomenon going on where the conservative media are really hopping up the whole Bill Clinton connection to Epstein, right? And you've got the more liberal media that are hopping on the whole Trump connection to Epstein. And as far as I can tell, both were actually connected to him.
Yeah, absolutely.
So is there anything that you want to add to that? Because I see that you're looking it up here.
No, it's real interesting that this is finally going to see the light of day, and that there is potentially a lot of information that's going to be released, which could implicate people in. We also have been pretty sober about, in criticizing especially the extreme right wing, and just throwing around pedophilia like it's no big deal to just accuse someone of that,
Right.
But now, I mean, with all this coming out, though, it's really hard to not want to implicate people in some way just from the evidence of writing the Lolita Express. Like, that is a fact.
Yeah.
That both Bill and Hillary Clinton, have wrote the Lolita Express multiple times, and what was going on there other times. So there's no proof, but I mean, come on, dude. It's like,
well, didn't it in 2002 Trump say that Epstein had
they have similar taste in women?
They had similar tastes in women or something like that? It's very very odd quote that he said back then. I don't really know.
Oh, well, here's 6 hours ago. While I'm looking for this, despite having praised Epstein, Trump now says he, quote, wasn't a fan, from MSNBC.
Oh, really?
Even though he once called him a terrific guy.
Well, there's this lawsuit that was actually dropped in 2016 that was put out by someone named Jane Doe.
Yeah.
That was one of these young girls that claimed that Trump raped her.
Yeah.
And that apparently was dropped because this girl feared for her life, feared for her safety, as I understand it. Yeah. But, this is something that, when I say this, people are going to say, well, that's just the liberal media saying that, and they're going to go get all up in ours. But there are court documents that state this.
Well, yeah, and here's the 2002 quote, Trump, that Epstein likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's... man. It's gonna, this is the whole thing with this whole QAnon stuff right now, is where they're talking about how they're going to get all the people that are on the Democratic side, and they're going to get them all for pedophilia. That's the QAnon is this outgrowth of Pizzagate.
Yeah.
And they're gonna do all this, but I made the point then. I'll make the point now that Trump was just as associated with Epstein, and he was associated with the Clintons back in the early 2000s and the late 90s.
And it makes the whole thing look really strange that this meme of this organized pedophilia in high places really like picks up. I mean, Epstein was probably the juiciest piece of that entire meme that got started.
Yeah.
I mean, with the most actual evidence and actual documentation, actual court records.
Well, some of it was ignored, though, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think strategically ignored by people that are on the conservative or the right-wing camp, or on this QAnon camp. An interesting thing that happened over the 4th of July, apparently, and this is just bizarre, QAnon people were saying that JFK Jr. was supposed to come back.
Right.
And he was going to reveal everything, and he was going to be Trump's running mate in 2020, that Trump was going to drop Pence and put the reanimated JFK Jr. in his place.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it just, brain matter just comes out of your ears on this one. So, we have an announcement, and unless you guys have not been listening to the show in a while, you have probably noticed that Rob has not been involved. And we have pretty much, Studio B is now Studio A. It's the only studio at the moment. Rob has, I think, severely limited his involvement in the show. And he is not going to be a part of it from the day-to-day, kind of like episode-to-episode Conspirinormal.
Right.
But he still is part of certain things in the family. Yeah. He's part of certain things that we have going on that we're going to be revealing here in the very near future, that we've got something that we're putting together. And at the moment, I'm not going to talk too much about it. There are some people that are of certain of our fans that know, but we're going to be revealing that in the coming weeks about what we're going to be doing, and he's going to be a big part of that. And also, he's going to be back for things like episode 300, which I'm kind of putting together an idea of what we're going to do, because this is episode 270, and we got 30 more episodes left until the big 300. So I just, Rob, he has been a big part of this show. He basically saved this show for me back all the way up back in like episode 60, when Alyssa, his girlfriend, which you probably heard on the show if you listen to the back catalog, she suggested him coming in being the producer of the show. And Rob put in a good 4 years and got the show pretty much where it needed to be.
Pro style.
And we're really hoping at some point that, he's going to come back. But for now, it's just me and Serfiel. I think at this point, you guys have been used to this, because this is how it's been for the last few episodes. So going forward, Serfiel has been doing it, and he's been doing a good job. And I'm not talking about like the good job like George W. Bush told the FEMA director back in 2005. You're doing a good job. I'm not saying that. I'm saying you've been doing a really good job, and taking over the producer credits, taking over the co-host slot.
I'm just trying to fill those shoes, man.
Yeah, it's been hard to fill Luke's shoes, I know, but
But now, but really, trying to fill Rob's shoes with the production. It's been a little bit of a learning curve. So thanks, everyone who's been hanging in there.
Yeah,
it gets a little raw at times. I kind of got to throw this together every week. I'm really able to respect what Rob did, just trying to fill those shoes. But Yeah, it's kind of weird, man. It's kind of feeling like those pictures of Stalin, where like you have like Trotsky and other guys all hanging out. Then like the next picture, one of them's gone. The next picture, one of them's gone.
Well, this is the thing.
You know?
Well, this is the thing. I mean, it's been a ride. I mean, when I first started, it was myself and Luke and a guy named Chris. Then that guy dropped out, and then it was me and Luke for a while. Then it was just me for about 10 episodes. And then it was then Luke came back. Rob joined us around sometime in like the episode 60 to 61 or something like that. And it was me, Luke, and Rob for quite a long time till Luke left again. And then it was myself and Rob. And then we added you in at the beginning of last year. And now Rob isn't going to be here as much anymore. I mean, he may come back at certain points, but he's still part of the family. He still gets kind of like I think to me, like a executive producer credit in some ways. So it's just, this is the way things go.
Yeah.
And, but you guys are stuck with us now. So
yeah,
maybe one day I'll disappear and just hand it all over to Sergio.
No. Well, we can make a little montage, maybe the greatest Rob moments. And like put some inspirational music in the background.
Yeah.
Funeral march or something.
Yeah, the dirge. All right, guys. Well, send Rob some love out there. Find him on Facebook. Send him some love. Tell him that you miss him. Tell him that you love him. All right, guys. Well, okay. So now, Sergio, pull some new thought magic on the listeners out there for how they can support our show.
Well, people like supporting Conspirinormal in a variety of ways.
Some do.
Some like supporting us on Patreon and becoming patrons and giving us a monthly reoccurring donation at patreon.com/Conspirinormal. Now, some may want to just give a one-time donation to Conspirinormal.com. Others, such as yourself, may find their own special way to contribute and support and help Conspirinormal in the work that we do.
Yes, indeedy. All right. Yeah. So we got to follow the Kabalion, my friend. Okay. Well, guys, we're going to be switching gears next week. We're going to be talking about the mad world of multi-level marketing. This is going to be rather different, but it will be still in the Conspirinormal world. So, guys, join us next time on Conspirinormal.
Becoming a Patreon at www.patreon.com/Conspirinormal or leave a one-time donation at Conspirinormal.com. And please check out our YouTube channel.